Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. I hope you are doing well on another dark, dreary fall Wednesday afternoon. If it's Wednesday afternoon at the end of November, it means it's almost end of October. It means it's almost Halloween. It also means it's almost time for the trade deadline. Falcons are sitting 3-4, and they've got the 6-2 Patriots coming up and the 7-1 Indianapolis Colts coming up. Now, we thought 4-4 at worst at the trade deadline would mean, let's see what that means. But they're also now staring 3-5 in the face at the trade deadline. So we're not really sure what to expect here. I know I can expect Nick Kendall and Summit to be joining us any second as I see Nick coming in and adjusting his camera. Welcome in, Nick. I just said I was late because the white balance on my camera is so screwed up. I said I look like an ivory statue of a dead person. So my lighting's a little off today. Corey's talking about Rich McKay interview. I'm going to get into that later today. I'm going to go through that today, and we're going to do a lot of that on written form because he made an appearance and he is the Falcons boogeyman out there, and he might be the most disliked person in Atlanta as far as Atlanta Falcons go, for the people that know who he is. But we're going to get into buyers and sellers. And Nick, there's already been some action out there. I feel like the NFL trade deadline is a little anticlimactic. There ends up being about, on average, one trade per team, which is basically 16 to 18 total trades. And since you need two trades, multiply it by two, you're talking 32, 36 teams, somewhere in that neighborhood. Do you think the Falcons, where do you think the Falcons are right now as far as, let's forget contracts as far as administration goes and thin ice, but how close do you think they would be talent-wise to being a playoff team that they would be buyers, so to speak?
Man, it is so hard to say, Scott, with all of that because this team has been so erratic. I mean, they got to be one of the more volatile week-to-week teams in the league. I think from a talent perspective, you're probably more of a seller on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if I necessarily want to take away too much from the offense because everything in this franchise is pretty dependent on what Michael Penix becomes. So I don't know if unless you're getting like a good return, I don't know if I want to be taken away from the offensive side of the ball. But defense is so, again, I hate to use that word again, but volatile. Year to year, there's so much turnover on the defensive side of the ball. You have some useful pieces there as well. I know that everybody's been excited a little bit more about what the defense looks like, but I'm a little bit more apprehensive to take away offensive pieces. But defense, I think short term, you can probably, if you can get some draft, I know you hate the word, Scott, but draft capital back. That's one that I look at, maybe create some, make sure you get some opportunities for some other players. Well, I know you're playing most of the young guys, but guys in the last year, their contract, just not part of the long-term vision. Those are ones I'd be looking to potentially offload. And I know that's probably more interest in some of the offensive pieces. I just, again, the alpha and the omega of this team right now and what they're going to be. Let's say this isn't a playoff team this year. You got to do everything you can to make sure Penix is the guy and he's comfortable. So I'm a little more apprehensive of that.
I think one of the problems about, the playing the younger guys is they're not healthy. It's like, yes, last year we were, I took several shots at the Atlanta Falcons administration for redshirting their entire class, for drafting a class that needed to be redshirted because they basically drafted every single player they drafted in day one and day two. And even at the top of day three were guys who had 30-year-old entrenched starters ahead of them. I mean, that's no help. So we were looking forward to seeing those guys. Well, now it's like, I want to play the younger guys. Well, Jalen Walker hasn't been healthy. Billy Bowman hasn't been healthy for a month. Those are the two main ones. And we are seeing Xavier Watts and we are seeing James Pierce Jr. And we are seeing those guys that were redshirted last year. So there's not like this rush for, oh man, we need to see what we've got from this guy. So let's move him. That said, there's a couple of things here. And then I'm going to start saying some hellos just to kind of set the tone of the story. Of the show today. This is year 5 of Terry Fontenot's tenure. He has not had a winning season. Can he pull the plug on this year and have a job next year if they go 7-10, 8-9 again? I don't think so. No. On the flip side of that, do I want him making big moves in the buying market if it all goes bad and he's not going to be here, and now you've sold even more of your future when you've only got 5 picks to begin with for next year? I don't think so. So are they in a state of, we can't really sell unless it's something that's obvious, like let's do this? I don't know that they're in a place where they're, I guess, in a state of limbo, so to speak, where you can't really do anything and it's hard to move the needle midseason anyway, but I don't know that Terry Fontenot's got full reign to do whatever the hell he wants anyway. Not that he ever did. It's always a collaborative effort. We know that. But it's a precarious situation for Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons when it comes to buying or selling right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we need the shadow ownership GM and Rich McKay to come make some moves. Huh, Scott?
He's been making them all along, hasn't he?
Yeah. Just pulling the strings. But yeah, it's something we talked about this offseason as well, right? You don't typically see coaches fired after 2 years. Normally it's 3 years if they're not working out. But
a little bit recently, though, too.
That has changed. And also, we've talked about it on here. I've talked about it on here. You love the coherentness of a clean start of hiring a general manager and a head coach together. Part of, like, whether it be the head coach being the one pitching the general manager that he wants to work with, or the general manager pitching the head coach, Scott. So you don't love to have, we fire one and then, next year the head coach needs to be fired and we're starting over on one side. I kind of like the clean cut. Now it's a lot of work for a ownership group to do both at the same time. I understand that, but it is the league and you got to get it right. So all Scott.
Let me say hello to some folks that have come in. I'm going to start with Curtis Case. He has broken the ice today with a super chat. Thank you, Curtis, and for being a member. I see that Falcon right next to you in YouTube over there. He says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and Falcons Nation. That's all y'all. Arthur Blank needs to stop being so loyal. We need to clear everyone out the board and reestablish a new culture and get an offensive coordinator and head coach to help develop Penix this offseason. Yeah, Curtis, you've been with me for a long time, and you know how I just bristled in the offseason anytime I heard the word comfortable. Comfortable. You got 7 straight losing seasons. No one should be freaking comfortable. Well, we saw during spring training. I'm always in baseball mind. In fall camp, which is in the summertime, there was definitely much more competition on the defensive side of the ball. The offense was pretty well set. We knew that. That's okay. But on the defensive side of the ball, we saw competition. We saw an influx of young players. We saw some established veterans come in on, 1-year deals like Leonard Floyd, come in and push these guys. And we've seen the results of the competition on defense. We haven't seen it as an organization because it is too comfortable. And again, no, I am not advocating for Bill Belichick to have been hired. No way, no shape, no form. But that he wasn't hired because they were afraid he might upset the culture. That's the wrong reason. There's 50 reasons to not hire Bill Belichick. Upsetting the culture is not one of them, and that was one they leaned on. That pisses me off. That makes me angry. Your culture is broken right now. I don't care if everybody's got a big Ted Lasso smile on their faces at Flowery Branch. Ted Lasso turned around and won. Showed some progress. You can have both, but you can't have one or the other. You really can't. You need to have a good culture and you need to win, or something needs to change. So I'm with you, Curtis. Appreciate the super chat, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Curtis. Appreciate you coming in and supporting the show. Always good to see everybody. I see a bunch of folks coming in too, Scott, that we always love to hear from. Carolyn, Carrie, of course, good morning. Good to see you. Falcons lose New England. They will need to be sellers, not buyers at the deadline. Hope we can bounce back. 10 games to go, but I'm okay if we can, despite bad coaching. Again, it's a very erratic team right now. Injuries are piling up, and when you get beat like that, you kind of found out a lot about again, you mentioned the culture, Scott, the buy-in from the players and the coaching staff as well. So you got a very tough game stretch. I think there's probably too much pride and, individual tape money on the line for these guys to lay down and die at this point in the season. So I think, as good as New England has looked, Scott, I think their defense is gettable. They've had like one of the easiest schedules we've ever seen in NFL history. I think I was looking at Football Outsiders, FTN, the other day. I've never seen this before, Scott. They do a past schedule strength and a future schedule strength, and the Patriots were 32nd ranked in their past schedule strength and 32nd ranked in their future schedule strength. I mean, God bless. They're playing an SEC non-conference schedule there. I'm sorry, I had to get in a Big Ten guy here. But no, I think New England is gettable. Drake May's playing unbelievable football. But, I mean, you get a good game plan against him. He's prone to put the ball in harm's way, and you got a chance. I think their defense is overrated. A lot of people are making, Drake May, look at the schedule. He's had it so easy. The defenses they've played have been mediocre. They haven't played a lot of elite defenses, but the offenses they've played have been horrible, terrible. So I think you got a chance, and you win that game, you're on track. Maybe a game behind on track, but you got a chance for sure. Indianapolis, granted it's international. Like international games are always kind of added a little bit more of a coin flip, a little bit more variables, but I think you got a chance to beat New England.
Indianapolis has the 30th ranked schedule. Now, keep in mind that they've put 7 losses on their schedule because they've beaten 7 out of their 8 teams. Buffalo has the 31st easiest schedule. New England, in that there's a huge drop-off. I like line graphs when we're talking about rankings and not just numerically, because you can see that, okay, well, 15 to 25, those are almost equal. There's hardly any difference there. Well, here's the 25th and the 15th. It doesn't matter. There's hardly any separation between those two. But you go down from Indianapolis, there's a huge drop-off in strength of schedule to 31 to Buffalo, and then another big one to 32 to New England. So we still might not find out who New England is because we don't know who's going to show up for the Falcons. I feel pretty good about the Falcons defense, but the Miami Dolphins had had a bad defense.
Yes,
so and the Falcons couldn't move. Well, the injuries, this, and this. Yeah, there's injuries, and then there's 50 yards of offense in the first half. There's 12 plays in the first half. That's bad. I don't care who you're putting out there, Nick. That's bad. And Kerry has a good message for everybody. Hit that like button, everybody. Certainly appreciate it. 8 Allen coming in. Made it live. Well, thank you. I always see you in the comments afterwards, so I'm glad you're able to make it live today. Sam is here also. He says 10 games left in the schedule. Need to go 6-4 to end with a winning record. Do we see 6 wins left on this schedule? Well, I mean, on paper, you're 3-5. You're 3-6 because on paper the next 2 are losses. You're going to be pretty big underdogs to New England. You're going to be a pretty big underdog to Indianapolis. So now you're down to 3-6 and have a winning season. You need to go 6-3 or 6 and I don't even know. I can't do the math. The 17 game, I still haven't wrapped my head around the reflexive action on that. 3-6, 9 games left. I need 6 wins. So 6-2. I still can't figure it out. 6-3. It's all messed up for me, Sam. The 17 game schedule is too much for this old dude. But you feel like you're sitting there looking at 3-6. So I actually missed one. That's why, because it's not 3-5, it's 3-6. You're 3-4 right now, and you're staring 3-6 in the face. So Sam says, we need picks. I don't want players if this season is cooked. And because in Austin Freeze says, I like sellers, but old-fashioned players for players. That happens. AJ, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Michael Ronquillo is in as well. Joe Dirt, he's ready to be a seller. Horton says, you're not old. I guess it's all relative, right? And he says, I think the players, especially on offense, have lost all confidence in the coaches, and it showed on Sunday. I see them going 5-12, and they need picks to build up the depth. 5-12, that would be 2-8 to finish the season. That's getting some folks fired.
Oh, yeah.
That's cleaning house.
Yeah, you're done.
That's cleaning house.
Yeah.
8-9, I said maybe. 7-10, cleaning house. 5-12, they're all cleaning house. So
yeah, that would sting a lot, Scott, because the draft, obviously. So we need to get some wins here just for the vibes because we don't have the first round pick we can hang our hat on. I guess you can put on James Pierce highlights, but that doesn't breed hope because he's already here.
Yeah, and again, it is and again, I don't necessarily think we'll see if that was a bad trade or not. where I have argued constantly is it wasn't an overly expensive trade. You can't go into the season expecting to be 5-12. I mean, I guess you should if you're the Atlanta Falcons, but Terry Fontenot couldn't afford to do that. And James Pierce Jr. could end up being a good pick, and you've definitely got better value for Xavier Watts than where you drafted him at close to 100. So he was the equivalent of a second-round pick. If you told me right now, if I'm doing this grade and you said you got Xavier Watts at 45 and I'm regrading the draft right now, I'd put a check mark next to that name. I'd say that was a hit. That was a good pick. So the expense of the draft, I will go to my grave saying wasn't overly prohibitive, wasn't too expensive, but you have to wait and see how the players turn out. And then you can't count on your season to just completely tank. I guess we should know better. Jay, good to see you, fellow Pope alum. He says this is one of the weirdest Falcons teams I've ever seen. It really is. We've seen bad. We've seen talented. We've seen talented and bad, but usually the bad is pretty consistent. This team is just so up and down. It's like, oh, I've seen some comments. Oh, you actually thought you were good for beating up a bad Washington and bad Buffalo team? Well, look at what Buffalo does a week later, when they get their act together. Buffalo team is still a dangerous team, and they were handled pretty well. Washington is probably on a little bit of a downward spiral, but you were coming off a 30-0 loss to the Panthers. That was a character game, not necessarily a measuring stick of where you are in the league. So, and again, it's not that he thought they were necessarily, hey, they're Super Bowl bound, but maybe they had put a game like the Miami Dolphins in their rearview mirror that wasn't going to happen again. And here it comes 2 weeks later. I think it is absolutely a weird season.
I mean, we talked about it, Scott. This is a very volatile team. FTN they have a metric where they can measure your week-to-week consistency, variable called variance. And the Falcons have the third highest variance week-to-week this season. It blows my mind that there's teams that are more erratic than them. Then you see the names of them, and it's like, oh, I remember some crazy opposite end of the spectrum games. The Vikings being one of them with higher variance, and the Commanders as well. The Commanders have just gotten the pants beat off them sometimes.
Well,
and
their variance isn't necessarily week to week. They've started well and have gone way down. I would think
and Mariota
if we added up all the variance, the up and down, the elevation, you'd end up with a pretty high one on there. They might be counting variance your lowest point to your highest point.
Yes, exactly.
Which unfortunately is how Google Maps does my rides when I go and ride my bike. And it says elevation of 1,000 feet. And 2/3 through my ride, I was at 2,500 feet. And I had to call my wife and come pick me up because I couldn't ride anymore. So I'm like, yes, the lowest point to the highest point was 1,000 feet. But you're doing that several times. So I fell for that trap just last week, and I pulled into Roswell High School and said, come and get me. I can't make it. I can't make it home. That was a long ride. I thought that was dogs, and it might be dogs, but it's DSG. That's a cool picture underneath the Falcon. I like it. I think Terry is fine, but Raheem has dug his grave hiring his buddies as OC in DC. And the question I ask is, why would you think Terry Fontenot is fine? Again, he's had 5 years without a winning season. Why would your general manager be safe? Well, he hasn't really been the general manager. It's been all Rich McKay and hasn't been his hires on this. Then what do I need him for? It's like, then what do you do here? If this is a 7-10 team, I think it's a house cleaning. I think if Raheem goes, I think Terry goes. And if Terry doesn't go, I'll be surprised. And I'm not going to say if I'm going to bring in a new coach, I need a clean slate. You get two coaches usually as a general manager to fail. I don't know how involved he was in the hiring process. Says he was pretty involved. I think he won more of a power struggle with Arthur Smith because I'm not convinced he had final personnel say when Arthur Smith was involved. But I think Terry's in trouble if it happens. And AJ agrees. He says Terry has to go if Ross fired. 5 straight losing seasons, multiple bad drafts, the Kirk Cousins thing, the constant trading up. He says they put an aggressive meter on everybody, like who's more aggressive in trading up and trading down. And I think he was 4 of 5. So he was like 80% in his trade ups before this draft. And he traded up how many times? 2 or 3 more times? He's always trading up. And you can
Saints,
fall
baby.
in love with players, but you need to fall in love with multiple players because multiple picks is how you help build depth. You leave yourself so little room when you're constantly trading 2 picks to get one guy. If that one guy isn't the dude, then what happens with that other pick? I use his only trade down as an example, Nick. His only trade down in his five draft history was his first trade. He traded down, took Richie Grant, got a 4th in return, and got Drew Dahlman. Well, Drew Dahlman ended up being the best player of that bunch, including the pick, Javonte Williams, who the Broncos took with that pick. So with the Falcons' original pick, I like trade downs. So I think he's in trouble. Let's get back to this though, Nick. What kind of players will be out there? You know the league a lot better than I do. I know the Falcons pretty well. You know, I don't think you find starting offensive tackles out there. Evan Neal is a guy I have seen, but that's about it. But cornerback,
guard, yeah,
wide receiver, linebacker, if Divine's still out, those are 3 positions that can be had. Are there any guys out there that are interesting that are being shopped or on the last year of their contracts? If the Falcons were to be buyers, that they could get some help in those positions?
I was just pulling up the Tankathon. But the wide receivers have been getting a lot of play, Scott. It don't make sense for the Falcons because they're in your division. You got Shaheed and Chris Olave have been coming up a lot. The other issue is that I just don't think I saw some comments in here about trading for a linebacker. I don't know if you guys have the draft picks to be aggressively adding players right now. I think this is a stand pat or sell. Like the buying, are you going to be taken out of the 2027 pot when it might be a completely new regime? If I was Arthur McKay, I would say absolutely no way, Jose. That's not happening. But you have the Saints obviously sticking out. Maybe you could get a cheap move for Jerry Jeudy. I know that he's been erratic, but 6th round pick, 5th round pick to bring in somebody who's a route runner. Granted, he does his best work in the slot, but still he can do some Z work as well, kind of unlock London a tad as well. After that, you also have Jacoby Myers with the Raiders, but sounds like he's probably New England bound. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to make the move for the best one. Yeah, Pittsburgh, as well.
Too, yeah.
Yep. And Minnesota's been kind of on the sounds like they could be potentially a trade team. Maybe Naylor, I think, is the name. They're their 3rd wide receiver. Granted, he's not amazing. You're talking late draft capital, but the wide receiver room without London is, a wet fart noise right now. But I think just in general, it's hard to envision this Falcons team with where they're at being a buyer, not just because of their record, but because you have so few picks to play with.
And again, that's why do I trust Terry Fonda to make those moves? I mean, well, shoot, he'll trade a pick because he's just going to trade a 2027 pick to take a pick in 2026. You're constantly overpaying when you're constantly trading up. And just like kicking the can down the road in the draft, in the salary cap with all of these deferred contracts and restructures, all that comes due at some point. This was a year that you were hoping, okay, it's not going to matter. Okay, we're gonna go all in this year. We're gonna get another 1st round draft pick, and we're gonna go all in on defense. Well, it's worked on defense. It really has. What did we say last year? You get even a top 15 to 20 defense. Last year was a playoff team, no doubt. Well, you've got a top 10 defense right now on pretty much any metric you want to look at, and you're talking about cleaning house in October. Why? Because what are you now, 29th in points scored? It's tough. So yes, buying doesn't make any sense to me. But if Terry Fontenot still has the keys to the car, he's going to be pretty desperate. He's got to be pretty desperate to think, I want to try and go get one of these. I just don't know how many guys are going to be available that can come in. There are guys that can help. Inside linebacker, that should be easy. I should be able to do that off a practice squad without having to even give up a pick. Corner's going to be a little bit tougher. Wide receiver, that shouldn't be that hard either. I feel like I'd feel better with Dylan Drummond and Nick Nash in there running routes right now. But the linebacker one should be a practice squad. Trading a pick for a wide receiver or a corner would probably be harder. And Rusty says, did you see the Rich McKay interview on 680? I am going through it today. I've seen some of the reactions to it, of course. But it was it Cellini and Domino who were on him? And Domino was going nuclear on Sunday on X. So I'm sure he toned it down a little bit, but it's impossible to keep all of that anger out of your voice when you're doing it. Grilling him about the franchise and his role, and he basically admitted to being involved in decisions, as a consultant, so to speak. He's there, Rich McKay, and hanging around El Boba Yaga, right, John Wick fans. He's the guy you send in to kill the boogeyman. Who do we get? Do we need John Wick? Do we need El Boba Yaga there? So thank you, Rusty, for the support. We're going to get into all of that on the written side of things, and if I see anything that really gets me out, I might throw in a members comment on there. Being sellers, I'm kind of with Austin on this one. So we ain't beating the Pirates in Gillette State, or the Patriots in Gillette Stadium, going on the road and winning there, and who knows what the weather's going to be like at the beginning of November. It's a long haul, but again, I don't know how good the Patriots are. And people have asked, we've had this discussion before. Oh, what are they going to say? They're going to say you haven't played anybody. I don't care. Win the games. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to be 6-2 and saying no? Well, they haven't played anybody yet. I'd much rather be in that situation. Talking about who did I say that about the other day? So I don't care. Win. Get the wins first. Oh, it was Mike McCarthy when we were talking about the floor, the 12-5, but he couldn't win in the playoffs. We don't want that guy. He can't win in the playoffs. We can't even get to the playoffs. Let's get there first. Let's get some 12-5s. Then we'll worry about it. Let's get there first. So the Patriots are playing well, mistake-free football. Got a good quarterback, solid defense is playing solidly, and they're winning. Their schedule is terrible, but are the Falcons anybody? Is it going to get any better when they play Atlanta? We don't know. As Huckle says, it's Jekyll and Hyde, the coaching staff, and it is. I explain this as it's a poorly coached team with a lot of talent, and you're going to have wide variances on that one for sure. So Nick,
the guy we haven't brought up his name yet.
Go ahead, because I want to try and get back into sellers because I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, the guy for me that needs to be on the watch more than anybody. I mean, if it's clean house, it's clean house. But Zach Robinson, the offense is just so disconjointed. I sent you a tweet the other day about, I think it was Kurt Warner, who he's a little bit of a curmudgeon. He's a good guy. Met him a few times. He's from Iowa, but he says he just doesn't understand the spacing or anything from the Falcons offense at all. It looks disconjointed. And then what's the one thing I always say, Scott, from the beginning of the season? Well, if everything's going to bleep, at least we have this. It's the run offense. And right now the run offense is not good enough for the offensive line that you have in place, the weapons that you've invested in the run game. I mean, you have a top 8 pick, maybe the best running back or second best running back. Jonathan Taylor's incredible this season, Scott, but second best running back in football. Meanwhile, you are in EPA per rush this season, ranked 24th in success rate. So you're down. You are the 4th worst success rate rush offense in the entire NFL with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier and on paper, a pretty good offensive line. What the hell is going on? Like, that is just like 16th. If they were 16th in both those metrics, I'd be like, well, that's not good enough for Bijan Robinson. 24th and 29th? What the hell are we doing? I mean, how you can't, it's not, I mean, I'm the last person to give making excuses for a young quarterback if they're playing bad, because I think a lot of times quarterbacks, pretty quickly. Now, granted, maybe that's changed here with your Daniel Jones, your Sam Darnold, your Baker Mayfield run here as of late, but historically it'd been, pretty quickly. But it's hard to evaluate, Penix, when the thing that's supposed to be the identity of your entire team, forget the defense, forget everything, the run game is supposed to be the identity of the entire team, and you're bottom 10 in EPA and one of the worst down-to-down rush teams in all of football.
Nick, I'd always said at the college level, I'd rather have the coach than the player because the systems were productive no matter who they'd plug in. You'd look at Oklahoma. You'd look at y'all OGs remember Ralph Friedgen when he was at Georgia Tech. He takes Goose Godsey and beats Georgia, and his quarterbacks were always well prepared. Meanwhile, you get these guys with these 5-star quarterbacks. Tennessee was doing it for a while. I can't remember the guy's name. It was when I thought about it. He was when I first started really paying attention and watching the progression of recruits to transitioning into big time players. Oklahoma was always, they have a plug and play Heisman Trophy candidate every year, but those guys weren't necessarily NFL guys. What was it? Randy. The guy's name was Randy something up at Tennessee. It was just terrible with the Vols. And then Friedgen's down here, just always having somebody going well. I'd rather have the coach. It almost feels like it's starting to be that way again to me, Nick. And I think it's just because there's just so many bad quarterbacks out there. There's just such a, you talk about the superpower at the top. There's so many good young quarterbacks in the AFC. Yeah, but there's 15 teams who have quarterbacks that couldn't have made a team 25 years ago that are in the league right now. So there's definitely a shortage out there. Good morning, John. Hope you're doing well. Huckleberry, he's oh, and I know one more thing. I see Hucklebuck out here. He's taken up for Terry, and I get it. Terry, and my point on Terry Fontenot would almost be like Kyle Pitts, all right? Terry Fontenot was a new general manager, and I think he's improved. I do. I think he has improved. Do you get rid of him when his arrow was pointing up? I don't know. 5 years, and to me, it depends. 5 years and without a winning season, I think you're in trouble. I really do. But again, I would use that Kyle Pitts thing. If Kyle Pitts goes out and have a monster year, do you get rid of him now? Do you not re-sign him now? No. We finally got what we were hoping to get out of him. Figure out a way to keep him around. Franchise tag him, do whatever. But on the seller's market, the last thing I wanted to say, I've interrupted you and myself so many times I forgot, was I don't even really talk about Zach Robinson that much anymore because he's gone. I mean, he's tough. We don't need to even get into it. At the beginning of the season, we said that the shelf life on most offensive coordinators is 2 years. Either you're successful and you move on to a promotion, or you fail and you're fired. So this is the end of his 2 years. He's failing. I'm almost surprised if he's on a week-to-week basis as far as I'm concerned. He's week to week. There's no freaking way he's here next year. They turn it around in 10 games and go, then he'll take another job as a head coach at Oklahoma State or something. His star will be on the rise. Zach Robinson will not be here next year. I'll be really shocked if he is. So I almost don't even talk about him anymore. That's like a conclusion. As far as the sellers go, there's some names in here. There's some fairly obvious ones. The Kyle Pitts one, and it's something I guess I hadn't really thought about. I could trade him knowing that another team could franchise tag him too. I've said he's a perfect opportunity to franchise tag. Now I saw The Athletic says, they should try and get something for him. And they said a 5th rounder for the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, I'm not taking a 5th round pick for Kyle Pitts, Nick. I'm not taking it. I'll keep him in franchise tag him and try and shop him again in the offseason. I'm not taking a 5th round pick for Kyle Pitts. It's going to take at least a 4th and something else for me to pick up the phone. That was a non-starter for me.
Yeah, a lot of times you see the guys whose contracts are pretty much out, they have extremely depreciated value.
Chris says Terry has gotten better. Dimitrov got worse as he went along. And I think, Chris, that had to do with some of the desperation with Dimitrov. He's come up and said, we were trying to keep this team together for one more year and spent too much money on declining players. And I think he waited too long to address. He wasn't great in the draft as far as building the team goes. Salary cap management was poor. And then team balance was his undoing. The offensive line wasn't good enough for most of his tenure. And the defense, obviously, there was not enough into the defense for sure. But I agree with you on that. He declined, and I think Terry has gotten better. I think his drafts have definitely gotten better, though I've said before, I do not like all the trading up. I'd like to see a better mix in there. I want more players. To me, I'd rather have pick 105 and 150 than 96. I'd rather have two of those guys in there, and then maybe I get something. Maybe that 150 was a overachieving linebacker that can now help my team instead of being sitting on the 2026 person's docket. But the Kyle Pitts is one of the obvious ones. Kirk Cousins is one of the obvious ones also. Now, ESPN said an overreaction was that he didn't tank his trade value completely. I don't know about that, Nick. Who's trading for Kirk Cousins right now for anything? Does anybody think he has anything left in the tank? Or is he just Gonzalez? Kirk Gonzalez?
I wouldn't trade for him. He can't move at this point. Doesn't really have great.
Nick, I'm going to have to boot you on this one.
We're
going to have to call it a day. Pretty much every time you start talking, you're freezing up on me. So we're going to call it a day, and I'm going to finish with the list I have of guys that could possibly be sold. Appreciate you, but it's not working out today. So we'll hit you next time. Sorry about that, y'all. It was freezing up a little bit on Nick as he's getting settled into his new place in Denver. I don't think Kirk Cousins has any trade value, and I don't think he has any value that unless he's kicking up in a stink, which he hasn't been. He's already been paid. I'd make him third team at this point, though. I'd rather see Easton Stick out there next time, wouldn't you? If Penix can't go, do you want to see Kirk Cousins again? Do you think he's going to get better? Maybe. I don't know. I don't really want to see Kirk Cousins anymore on this team. I'm pretty much done. Rusty, this is an interesting one. Rusty says trade Kirk, Algier, Kyle Pitts, and Jesse Bates for draft picks, so the new general manager and head coach will have picks to make up for not having a first. Louis Riddick and Mike McCarthy. That would be interesting. Bates, is safety a luxury? Is a $20 million safety a luxury this team can't afford right now? Something to think about. And again, there's an emotional attachment to some of these guys. Someone mentioned trading Bijan, and I discussed it last week, and someone came up very politely, and I don't mind this. We had a good conversation. He's like, listen, Scott, I enjoy most of your shows, but talking about trading Bijan's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, well, it's not quite the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The dumbest thing I hear people repeat is that spending $100 million on Kirk Cousins was some elaborate bluff to draft Michael Penix. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I came to the same conclusion. No, I wouldn't sign Bijan, and there's a lot more to that. I mean, I wouldn't trade Bijan. And part of the reason is because of the emotional attachment to him. He is pretty much the face of your franchise right now. It's still a customer-oriented business. I know they take fans for granted, but it's still a customer-oriented business. You couldn't trade Bijan for that reason. For that type of reaction would be really, really tough to do. So is Jesse Bates quite in that category? He wasn't homegrown. He is well-loved here, but is he a luxury you can't necessarily afford? Because he's due to be a free agent, in 2027? He's sitting there at the top. So you've got 2 years left on his contract. He, at the end of his contract, will be 31. I don't know. We've talked about one of the problems with this team is that most of their money is tied into non-premium positions. Running back, Chris Lindstrom, guard. You've got, tight end. Kyle Pitts is still a super high-priced tight end. And then safety. They've tried to go around that with Drake London. Wide receiver is going to be, I promise you, he's going to be one of the highest paid guys on this team soon. Drafting edge rushers and Michael Penix. So again, that is where you want it to get. But I don't know that you could move Kyle Pitts. Now, Algier, speaking of a luxury you can't afford, how many in the two bad losses, Algier's had what? 3 carries, 4 carries? Is that somebody you need on the team? If I hear people that are looking for Breece Hall is a New York Jets running back that people are talking about possibly being moved. If I'm in the market for Breece Hall, wouldn't I be in the market? Wouldn't I give the Falcons a call for Tyler Algier? Now, you weren't going to get anything for Tyler Algier before the draft because why would I trade for a guy with 1 year left on his contract in a draft deep year? But now, let's say I'm the Kansas City Chiefs and I want to send you a 5th for Tyler Algier. I'm listening to that. I am listening. Is a backup running back with starting potential, is that a luxury this team can't afford right now? And God bless Tyler Algier heading into free agency. What a thank you present that would be to go to a Super Bowl contending team to finish out his rookie contract. My goodness. Speaking of tight ends, we talk about Kyle Pitts. What about Charlie Warner? Charlie Warner, you'd save a little bit of money. He's not making a ton of money anyway, but you'd save a little bit of money if you were to move on from him. The Falcons are 3-0 when he plays 60% or more of the snaps. They're 0-4 when he plays 60% or less, 59.9% or less. 0-4 when he plays less. He played 15 snaps in the loss on Sunday. The Denver Broncos, I'm in on their podcast. I produce their podcast. They're talking about we need to upgrade a blocking tight end. Well, why not Charlie Warner? Charlie Warner should absolutely be on the trade block. ESPN has an account out today, has an article out today talking about, the names we're hearing the most. And then their sleeper, who do I think is going to be moved? Well, Jeremy Fowler had a guy. The guy I had just got moved before we wrote this. So let me write on this one. And he puts in Arnold Ebiketie. Arnold Ebiketie is also in the last year of his contract. He is certainly not somebody who would franchise tag and put a $28 million hit on. He's been marginalized on this defense where he's the fourth option behind Floyd, behind Walker, behind Pierce. Probably not going to get a second contract from the Falcons. It will be as much as he would get from free agency. And the Falcons will be players in free agency, so you can't count on playing the comp game. There is a lot of smoke around Arnold Ebiketie possibly getting moved over the course of the next week. So that is another player to keep an eye on. Is Ebiketie. What do you get for him? Maybe a day 3 pick with his time running out. So I want to get back to the chat a little bit and hear what your thoughts are. Hello, Denver Luke. Hope you are doing well. And then I saw someone I didn't quite recognize who's a member. I feel like this was a newer name. I should, because I recognize the Golden Gate here. Super Music 25 is a member. I certainly appreciate that. Thanks for the support, my friend. He says, it's been days since the game. I've calmed down and had time to think, and I still say, fire everyone. Start your coaching search now. We have the players. I think we have the defensive coordinator. Yeah, I mean, you'd certainly want to keep him, keep Ulbrich. Now, guys, they typically, new coaches, new general managers, they like to keep their own guys, but Ulbrich's been around the block a few times. He'll have other options, especially what he's done with this defense. Does he want to stay in Atlanta? It sounds like it. When he got here, he says this is a great place. They love being here, but there's no guarantee that he would want to stay or have, I'm going to double your money to go play for back to the LA Rams. All right. That sounds okay. Another team, whoever. He'll have options too. I think that's one of the things we forget about. And what we've talked about is like, well, we don't have to worry about it. Is this guy worth a 5th round pick? Yeah, he is. But if that's all you can offer as a 5th, you're not just trying to trade in a vacuum. The New England Patriots might come in with a 5th and a future 7th. They can outbid you. And that's the problem the Falcons have right now trying to be buyers is they don't have any picks. They trade them away on trade ups all the time. And they've got 5. What we look at, the Patriots have 10 or 11 next year. They're going to be making some moves. So Super Music certainly appreciates you being a member. And thank you for that. Joe Dirt, talking to AJ on there. It's a combination of poor coaching and a lack of good depth. Where do you think the depth has hurt the most? I got 2 right off the top of my head. As far as the depth, the problems in depth, and that comes down to salary cap management. How many players do you think $40 million from Kirk Cousins would have bought? And let's just call it 30. Let's say I have a $10 million backup. $30 million would get me 6 guys at $5 million. How many Atlanta Falcons right now have salary cap hits at $5 million or more? I'm glad you asked. Let me look at it here. I'm on Spot Rack. So let's just go back to the 2025 season, but that's free agents. That's the problem. That's why I bookmark this. All right, damn it. Let's just type it in. Overview. How many players have salary cap hits of $5 million or more? 13 players. $30 million gets me 6 players that are $5 million or more that would be in my top 20 of my salary cap. So Oh, the salary cap doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You think $5 million, $6 million players, $5 million players at cornerback, at linebacker, at wide receiver would have made a difference? Yeah, it would have made a difference. And Terry, I'm a big fan of Mike Vrabel. He did a really good job in Tennessee. I think for me, he's a very similar guy to, what was it, Mike Fox? Fox, the Carolina coach, I thought had a lot of success over in Carolina, was a good coach. Maybe hit his head on it's hard to win Super Bowls, y'all. You know, Schottenheimer was one of those guys. He got fired after what was it, a 13-3 season, and he got fired for losing the first round of the playoffs. Vrabel's a good coach. He is a good coach. But after Vrabel gets lapped by Raheem Staff, we get the Colts coaching staff. Shane Steichen's a damn good coach. Not sure, but both of those feel like double-digit losses, 3-6, and at the same point, they were 6-3 last year. That's a good point, and headed in the wrong direction. But the flip side of that, the optimist in me, at least the argumentative side of me, there's not a whole lot of optimist in me. The argumentative side of me would say, well, yeah, but look how it turned around from 6-3, so it can turn around to 3-6. The problem is, y'all, if it's 3-6, that was 8 and I can't do these 17 thing math. They finished 8-9, so that means they went 2-6 down the stretch, right? So if they're 3-6, that means 5-12 in their last 17. Holy smokes. Think of it that way, y'all. 17-game season. If they lose these next two, they'll be 5-12 in their last 17 games. Yeah. Should probably cost someone their jobs. Well, everybody gets 3 years. No, they don't. Not anymore. Especially when you come in talking playoffs right away and we're a quarterback away and the last coach got fired because he didn't have a quarterback and we got two of them now. We spent $100 million on a quarterback to make the playoffs. We're 5-12 over the course of a year and a half. Yeah, that's a problem. It is a problem on that. Ozark says Pitts for Strnad. I don't want Strnad. I'm not a huge fan of Justin Strnad. He's a reserve linebacker up in Denver. Gotten some really good coaching and a really good scheme. I'm not I wouldn't want him. I would want to do some. I would want to look somewhere else on that. Hell, I'd look at Josh Woods and Ronnie Harrison internally first. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see DeMarco Helms play a little bit more box safety. Let's find a way to not make, and I really mean this, poor J.D. Bertrand played more snaps than anybody in the stadium on either team, played more snaps on Sunday. That's bad. That's what I do not want to see. Christy, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Actually, that says Chris Style. Christy Lewis is what it says. Christy, good morning. I'm over this week's Falcons flop hangover, but I have no hope for the game against the Patriots with this head coach and offensive coordinator. And Psalm likes the idea. Yeah, let's get Helms out there. Let's move him up in the box a little bit. If I need somebody next to Caden Ellis and it's 2nd and 8, I don't want J.D. Bertrand out there. Why is J.D. Bertrand playing every snap? 1st, 2nd, 3rd down. If you want him in 1st, he's still a liability. Okay. But put a safety in for him at 2nd and 3rd. Put in an extra linebacker. I'd rather see D'Angelo Malone out there. At least he can run. It's not all on him. X-Dog says, I don't blame Terry for Kirk, bro. He fell off a cliff when he got hurt against the Saints. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from on that. I've beaten this one to death. I go back to the day after the draft, when the day they drafted a bunch of redshirt guys that weren't going to play. Then why are you trying to go all in on a quarterback? Nobody does that. X-Dog. That's what I'm going to call you. That's what it looks like to me. That's what I'm going to call it. Nobody does that for a reason. There's limited resources to build a team between salary cap and draft picks that you can't go for it and rebuild at the same time. You just can't. It's got to be one or the other. And it was a completely contradictory style, and it's blown up in their faces, is what it did. Let me see. I got to Charlie Warner. Some of the guys I said that could be seller candidates: Tyler Algier, Kyle Pitts, Charlie Warner, Kirk Cousins. There's a sleeper in here. That hit me, who's been playing pretty well. What about David Onyemata? He's an older guy. He's on his last year of his contract. There'd be some money that you would get involved back in there. So you'd carry some money back over, depending on how much the other team, because he's well paid. I think he's $16 million, half the season left. So there's $8 million. You might have to pay half of that, but you get $4 million to spend next year if you move Onyemata and got a 6th-round pick for it. Onyemata is a serviceable, at worst, serviceable defensive tackle who's in the final year of his contract and is getting older. David Onyemata should absolutely be in the trade talks out there. As far as I'm looking to pluck the Atlanta Falcons ahead of Thanksgiving here, who should I look at to try and get? Everybody's talking about the Saints. Everybody's talking about the Jets and these teams. But if the Falcons are sellers, David Onyemata should absolutely be on that list. And I think you could get a genuine day 3 pick for him and $4 or $5 million in cash. As opposed to, okay, here's a 6th or 7th round pick swap. Someone sends you a 6th and $5 million for David Onyemata. All right. Okay, let's talk. And then I re-sign Zion Logue from the practice squad over at Buffalo Bills, maybe. I think he should absolutely be on that list. I see a question coming in from Psalm. Let me flip the dial on here on 2026 for salary cap for next year. Because Psalm says, let's see, roughly how much salary cap will we have next year, Scott? That says dead cap space right now. It says 26th, which is $16 million. Okay. But that also is counting $57 million cap hit from Kirk Cousins. So there's $22 million in savings right there. So 16 goes to $38 million. And frankly, they'll probably take that 35 across 2 years. So I'm just going to call it 20 million and then 15 in 2027. So 57 minus $20 million is $37 million. That's $53 million in cap space. Okay. Darnell Mooney has a dead cap number. He's on, is that next year? Active roster. He's got 18 against 11 dead cap. He's toast. Darnell Mooney ain't coming back. Probably if you take all of that dead cap at once, it's $11 million, but you save $7 million. So what am I up to now? $60 million? Let's see. As far as other guys go, Drake London is on $16 million next year. They can actually lower that sum but I'm not going to touch that. Let's leave it at 16. They could lower that sum for 2027 with an extension. What I think I'm up to $60 million with 2 moves, Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney. With just those 2 moves, I'm at $60 million. So cap tracker, if I go to 2026 and look at $60 million in cap space, that would put them at 12th or 13th. The thing is other teams can do that too. But not everybody's got a $30 million quarterback that they're going to be able to move on from too. So they'll be middle of the pack next year in available cap space, and which is a lot better than where they were last year for sure, which was 28th, 29th, 30th in available cap space. We're able to sign about $15 million in free agents, and Terry did a really good job. Leonard Floyd's been a good pickup. He's been a good player. And Divine Diablo has been a really good player. So those were the 2 players they were able to get in free agency, and they've been good. Matt, good to see you. He says, good morning. And DSG says, why wouldn't the coaches put Jalen Walker in for JD? He's got inside linebacker experience at UGA. Well, 1, he's been hurt. He hasn't been playing. 2, he hasn't been training there at all. So yes, he has experience, but none in the NFL. They said about him and what they were going to do with him, X-Dog, they want him to get good at one thing first before they overwhelm him as a rookie. Even as smart as he is, as savvy as he is, they wanted him to focus on one thing first, which was edge, before they moved him, before they cross-trained him into the next Caden Ellis. Speaking of which, let's get a little crazy here. You know who else is a free agent next year? Caden Ellis is a pending free agent this year. Caden Ellis is the leader of your team. You want to throw up a signal that you've thrown in the towel, that you are tanking? you better get something really good, because improving your draft pick isn't going to help a whole lot. When you're talking, your number one is in LA. Caden Ellis is a free agent. If I'm the Denver Broncos, whose brother is Jonah over there right now, and they have a problem at inside linebacker, I'm at least picking up the phone. Hey, what do y'all want to move? Y'all want to move Caden? He's a free agent. I don't think that'll happen. I do not think that will happen. So let's, be serious. Don't get all angry hate. Why would you get hell? Well, I would consider Caden Ellis because he's a free agent and this team is going nowhere. That's why. And he's going to be 30 years old. That's why. Would I try and re-sign him this offseason? Yes, I would. I would try and get him another contract. He's been an amazing player. He's been really, really good. A lot better than the metrics will have you believe. Well, he's like the 50th linebacker on PFF or something. We watch, trust your eyes. Caden Ellis has been really, really good for this team. He's been a bargain, a great signing from Terry Fontenot. And he's on $7 million, I think, is this year, but he's an unrestricted free agent. And he doesn't have to re-sign. Doesn't have to. And you can't really franchise an inside linebacker because they lump edges and inside as one position at linebacker, kind of the same thing they do with offensive linemen, which is why you don't franchise guards or centers, because you get the tackle salaries in there too. So franchise tagging an inside linebacker would be like a $28 million guaranteed salary. So you can't really do that. And I don't know that the Falcons are going to be savvy enough or, sit out free agency enough in order to play the comp pick game. So if Caden Ellis wants to finish out his contract this year and go somewhere else, he can. That's why you consider it. But I find that out now. Over the course of this next week, that's my job. I know that going into the trading deadline. What are the chances I can get Caden Ellis? I'm on the phone with his agent. That's what Terry Fontenot and his crew do all year. They know those things. What are the chances I'm going to re-sign him? I don't think you move him anyway unless you get a freaking day 2 pick. Someone send me a second or third round for Caden Ellis. And I've been told by his agents there's no way he's coming back. Then I make then I might make a move. But those things have to come true. And that's a hell of a lot of speculation for a podcast. I get it. On that. So we are about out of here. I want to make sure I got Rusty came in twice. Curtis, about to call it a day. Keep an eye on things. Like I said, I want to thank my super chat superstars. That's Curtis. That's Rusty coming in a couple times with super chats. Helps keep the lights on. Make me look like an ivory dead man for some reason today. So we'll try and get the white balance fixed a little bit next time I come on. Appreciate y'all be on. And thanks to my members. I saw Super in here. I saw John Harrell in here. I think Curtis Case double dipped. He's also a member. If you want to be a member of the Falcons podcast, check the description and the link like this banner says. Help support the show. Helps us do bigger and more things for you in the Falcons side of things. But I am going to get going unless there's any final last words that you guys have. Let me check as we go in. Oh, there we go. Jason's here too. He's also a member. Thank you, Oblivion Empire. Certainly appreciate it. We may talk before the game on Sunday, but I am here, so I'm planning on doing another gut reaction on Sunday. And then we'll be back on Monday, which will be the day before the trade deadline. So we'll probably talk more trade deadline and reaction on Monday, depending on what happens on Sunday. So be ready for the gut reaction on Sunday. I am out of here. Thanks for being here, everybody. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you have too. You'll have a great rest of your week. We'll see you this weekend.